You owe no clarity to the darkness. Your light is not meant to explain itself to the blind. There come moments in every man's life when he realizes not everyone wants to understand him. Some want to challenge you. Some want to control you. And some simply want to confuse you until you doubt your own light. All your life you've been told to communicate better, to explain yourself, to be transparent, as if opening up would guarantee understanding. But what if I told you some people are never confused? They see exactly who you are. And that's the problem. They don't misunderstand you by accident. They deliberately misinterpret you because your clarity threatens the lies they live by, because your growth exposes their stagnation, because your peace makes their chaos roar louder. These aren't people lacking intellect, they lack willpower. They don't want the truth. They want to drain your spirit until you shrink yourself down to fit their bitterness. And here lies the trap. You keep explaining. You keep justifying. You keep rationalizing your choices, values, and boundaries as if your self-worth were on trial. As if they would say, "Ah, now I get it." But they never do. And they never intend to. Because their goal isn't to understand you. Their goal is to dominate you. Your willingness to explain becomes a weapon they twist into ammunition against you. It's time to stop. Not because you're bitter, but because you're wise enough to know you can't argue with darkness. You don't owe your defense to those who willfully misconstrue you. You don't clarify your light to those addicted to darkness. There's a reason your silence unsettles them more than your words ever could. Because silence is where power resides, where boundaries are honored, and where your dignity becomes non-negotiable. This isn't anger, it's clarity. Reclaiming your energy from those who feed on confusion, blame, and emotional chaos. This is the language of emotional intelligence, of psychological boundaries, of quiet self-respect in a world addicted to noise and reaction. If you're mentally, emotionally, or spiritually exhausted from explaining yourself to those unworthy of your truth, walk with me in this video to discover why some demand too many explanations, why your silence becomes your strongest shield, and how to reclaim your inner peace. True self-worth and unapologetic strength begin with this bold decision. Stop explaining yourself to the demons inside others and start remembering who you truly are. Not every attack on you is personal. Some come because of what you reflect back to them. Let that sink in. You're not the enemy. You're the mirror. When someone carries unresolved pain, unhealed insecurity, or prolonged emotional turmoil, your peace becomes a threat to them. Your boundaries feel like disrespect. Your maturity becomes a danger. Why? Because your light forces them to confront the darkness within themselves. They don't resent your success. They resent what your success reminds them they haven't achieved. They don't envy your confidence. They resent it because it exposes their inner doubts. They don't attack your voice because it's wrong. They attack it because it's clear. And clarity terrifies the emotionally weak. This is what psychology calls projection. When someone cannot face their own inner truth, they unconsciously push it outward. They label you arrogant when you're simply confident. They call you selfish when you finally set boundaries. They brand you difficult when you stop people-pleasing. And if you're not alert, if you lack emotional wisdom, you start believing them. You confuse their projections for reality. You begin to doubt yourself, retreat, and question your intuition. Not because you're wrong, but because someone with unhealed pain casts their shadow on you. This is how demons manifest in people, not as monsters on screen, but as subtle manipulators in everyday life. They smile to your face, but quietly erode your confidence. They pretend to care, but secretly compete. They offer advice rooted in their limits, not your potential. And the most dangerous part, they often wear familiar faces: a father, a brother, a partner, a friend, a boss. It's easy to spot a stranger trying to tear you down, but it's much harder to accept that the one wounding your spirit might be someone you once loved. Yet if you hold your values dear and protect your mental boundaries, you must face this truth. Not everyone in your life has the emotional strength to support your growth. Not everyone who says, "I care," truly wants to see you evolve. Some love the weaker, worn-out version of you, the one easy to manipulate, control, and guilt into compliance. When you change, they get unsettled. They say you've changed. You might think you've risen above them. You're no longer the man you used to be. But that's exactly the point, isn't it? Growth is the ultimate goal. You're not meant to stay the same. They're demons, envy, unresolved anger, and spiritual stagnation cannot bear your transformation. So what do? They provoke you. They lure you in. They drag you into needless fights. And when that fails, they play the victim. This isn't love, it's emotional warfare. The only way to win is to refuse to engage. Because the moment you try to explain your boundaries to someone who benefits from your lack of them, you've already lost. You're speaking truth to a master manipulator. You're trying to reason with someone lost in delusion. You offer vulnerability to those who see compassion as a tool to exploit. No matter how carefully you explain, no matter how many times you try, they don't listen. They filter everything through the lens of their own pain, and they twist every truth you share into a weapon against you. That's why you must stop explaining yourself, not out of arrogance, but out of wisdom, because you finally understand you're not here to fix what they refuse to face. You don't carry demons that aren't yours to bear. You're here to walk your truth quietly, steadfastly, without apology. If that truth unsettles them, so be it. That burden isn't yours to carry. It's the mirror they must confront. There's a subtle tragedy in the lives of men with good hearts and soft souls. They believe if they explain enough, open fully, and show their intentions clearly, they'll eventually be understood. But what they don't realize is that explaining to the prejudiced isn't clarity, it's self-erasure. And the erosion happens silently. You speak your truth, and they twist it. You set boundaries, and they label you selfish. You leave toxic cycles, and somehow you become the villain in their story. What do? You start to explain, defend, then justify. You replay every conversation in your mind, wondering if you could have said something differently. You soften your truth to make it more palatable, hoping they will finally see your heart. But they never do. And the worst part is it's never enough. No matter how much you say, how much emotional energy you invest, how transparent you try to be, they don't respond because they never intended to. Each attempt to make them understand breaks you a little more. You question yourself. Am I too harsh? Am I overreacting? Maybe I should let it go. Maybe it's my fault. This isn't just exhaustion, it's emotional erosion. Your self-worth diminishes as you endlessly strive for acceptance from someone unwilling to offer it. This is what happens when you forget your truth doesn't need permission to exist. Without vigilance, you'll waste years trapped in this cycle. You explain your kindness too much to the ruthless. You justify your boundaries too often to the demanding. You try to clarify your peace to those addicted to chaos. But no matter how skillfully you explain, they don't listen. Why? Because they don't listen to understand, they listen to refute. They wait for cracks in your conviction, weaknesses in your voice, to attack, manipulate, distort, and make you doubt your own reality. And this is the truth you must hold fast and unshaken. You are under no obligation to justify your peace to those who live for conflict. Let this be your new boundary. This doesn't mean becoming cold or closed off. It means choosing where to invest your energy wisely. It's a mark of true emotional intelligence to know not every question deserves an answer. Not everyone seeking entry into your life deserves an explanation. Not everyone who challenges your decisions does so out of love or respect. Some act out of envy, others from a desire to control, and some simply reflect their own struggles. Over-explaining only feeds the illusion that they have a right to your clarity. They don't. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to walk away. You have the right to say, "I will not explain myself to someone who twists my words into weapons." This isn't defensiveness, it's psychological self-preservation, silence born of dignity, not ego. Signals profound maturity. It says, "I know who I am. I know why I choose this path. And I no longer seek understanding from those who exploit misunderstandings about me." This is the quiet strength that separates the impulsive from the wise. Stoic philosophers grasped this long before psychology gave it a name. Don't waste your energy arguing with troublemakers. You're not here to convince them, but to live by your values, your truth, and your future. The moment you stop explaining, defending, or justifying yourself to those who cannot respect your truth, you reclaim your time. You regain clarity. You reclaim your power. True power doesn't shout, prove, or beg. It simply walks with calm eyes and purposeful steps. Now, let's pause and ask an honest question. Why do you keep explaining to those who have shown they don't want to understand you? Why give your energy away like candy to those who only take and never give back? The answer isn't what you think. It's not because you're weak, not because you lack reason, and certainly not because they deserve your concern. Deep down inside, you've been programmed to believe that if misunderstood, it's your job to fix it. You tie your worth to being liked, confusing acceptance with safety. When someone doubts your choices, beliefs, or identity, you panics, explain, justify. You dive into unnecessary emotions, seeking peace amid chaos. But here's the awakening. Peace isn't found by negotiating with turmoil. You find peace by guarding your energy against it. Emotional wisdom becomes your shield, because otherwise, you'll endlessly drain yourself trying to be understood by those emotionally bankrupt. They don't understand you, nor do they intend to. They provoke, taunt, and bait you because the moment you explain, they win. Not because your logic fails, but because your attention is their currency. Understand this well. Your attention is power. Whoever controls your emotional focus controls your inner state. When someone can rattle you, pushing you to explain, defend, or prove yourself, what they truly control is your energy. That's how they win. Because the moment you step into their arena to make them understand, you abandon your inner strength. You trade your inner peace for external validation. That deal is always a loss. The truth is, some people feed off your discomfort. They feel powerful when you stumble to defend yourself. They feel justified when you lower your standards to match their chaos. They feel seen when you explain your soul just to soothe their ego. But that's not connection, it's control. And the more you feed it, the more you lose yourself. Here's something many won't admit: there's a hidden benefit in over-explaining. It makes you feel like you're doing something useful. It creates a false sense of control. Like if you phrase it better, they'll get it this time, but they won't. Because they come not from curiosity but from ego. The ego doesn't care about truth. It only wants to win. Every time you get caught in the endless loop of explaining and justifying, you fuel their game, and worse, drain your own soul. This is when your self-worth must rise. This is when you realize not everyone deserves to hear your truth. Not everyone has the right to understand your inner reasoning. Not everyone is worthy of your transparency. You have the right to keep your distance. You have the right to protect your space. You have the right to say, "This conversation does not serve my peace." That's not rudeness. It's setting psychological boundaries, and that's a mark of high-performance thinking. Because the truth is, the most powerful people don't explain themselves to everyone. They act quietly. They conserve their energy. They walk away, instead of arguing with those addicted to misunderstanding. It's time you join them. You've wasted too much time watering dead trees. Too much time explaining to unfeeling souls. Too many times entrusting your peace to those who never intend to protect it. From now on, make this your mantra. I owe no one an explanation for the choices I've made for my peace. And when you feel the urge to explain, prove, or defend, take a deep breath. Remember, you weren't born to perform for those silently hoping you fail. Be honest. One big reason you keep explaining is because deep down, you crave recognition. You want someone to say, "I understand you. You're right." That feeling, that's validation. It's human nature. But at the same time, it's the most dangerous trap you'll fall into. Because when your peace depends on others' understanding, you lose your freedom. The belief that if people accept our thoughts, choices, and dreams, then we're okay. But no one tells us the truth. Most people accept you only when you make them feel comfortable. And comfort rarely comes from truth. It comes from similarity, compliance, and fitting their mold. So what happens when you break the mold? When you grow, when you push beyond their limits, you're no longer easily sympathized with. You're no longer easily controlled. You become a threat. Instead of adapting, many resist, not with weapons, but with psychological torment, silence, and cunning questions. Why do you act like that? Since when did you become so cold? You've changed. They aren't confused. They're just uncomfortable because you no longer beg for their approval. Yet still, you come back. You keep trying to explain. You keep hoping this time they'll understand. But be honest, if someone truly wanted to understand you, they would have asked better questions. If someone truly cared for your heart, they wouldn't weaponize your vulnerability. So why do you keep returning? Because you've mistaken recognition for love. And that's the most painful illusion to shatter, but it must be shattered. Otherwise, you remain emotionally bound to those who only love you when you're easy to accept. You can rise above others simply by choosing peace over performance. And when you do, they often label you selfish, distant, or cold. But choosing peace doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. Clear about what? Clear that you don't need psychological validation to know your worth. Clear that you're not here to be emotionally manipulated by those who thrive on your insecurity. This is a turning point in your life. You can keep explaining yourself to those who hear only to judge, or you can accept that understanding is not mandatory, and your truth doesn't need applause to be real. True emotional wisdom is knowing when to speak and when to hold back, because your energy is something to conserve, not to convince. Now, let's talk about silence. There is a sacred power in not responding when someone awaits a reaction. What you're really saying is, you no longer let them control you. That is the power of silence. It doesn't feed their game. It doesn't validate their drama. It doesn't let them enjoy your downfall. Instead, it leaves them alone with themselves. And for those who crave control, that's unbearable. So, stop confusing silence with weakness. Don't mistake peace for passivity. Sometimes the strongest move you can make is to quietly walk away. No grand explanations, nor dramatic endings. Just a firm decision. I no longer need to be understood by someone who chooses not to understand me. That, my friend, is the beginning of emotional freedom, the beginning of discipline for the soul, when your peace becomes untouchable, because this is the ultimate truth. Your life is not a courtroom. Your choices are not judged. Your truth needs no defense attorney. You don't need approval to breathe. You don't need applause to heal. You don't need permission to be free. You only need the courage to stop explaining and the wisdom to recognize who never deserved an explanation in the first place. Let me tell you a story. There was a remarkable woman, strong, radiant with light. She wasn't perfect, but she was sincere. She loved deeply. She listened carefully. She gave more than she received. And like many of us, she had a vulnerability. She wanted to be understood by someone who never intended to understand her. His words were charming, his presence magnetic, but beneath the mask was a man who didn't love her for who she truly was. He loved the feeling she gave him. She thought explaining herself would bring them closer. So she shared her past, childhood wounds, spiritual values. She explained why she needed alone time, why her boundaries mattered, why K's made her anxious. And each time he nodded, then twisted it afterward. You're too sensitive. You overthink. You're not as happy anymore. You used to be easier. So she tried harder. She softened her tone. She excused his behavior. She told herself he meant well. And maybe she needed more patience, more generosity, more communication. Until one day, she realized something terrifying. She wasn't communicating anymore. She was begging, and the more she explained, the more she lost herself. This is how emotional theft happens. Not with fists, but with every small piece of your truth peeled away slowly. Each piece stolen disguised as trying to fix things. This is not love. This is not misunderstanding. This is what psychology calls a trauma bond. A vicious cycle where the victim keeps trying to earn affection from the one who erodes their spirit. And it's more common than you think. Sometimes it's not romantic. It's the parent who makes you feel guilty for having your own needs. The boss who praises you one day, then belittles you the next. The friend who only calls when they need you, but accuses you of being distant when you don't respond. And in all cases, the trap remains. You keep trying to explain yourself to earn respect. But respect doesn't come from over-explaining. It comes from self-respect and is strengthened by clear boundaries. If someone cannot meet you with the same sincerity you offer, if someone uses your emotional openness as leverage, if someone makes you feel like being yourself is a burden, then you are not in a relationship. You are bound by a contract to serve their emotions. And this is where emotional intelligence steps in, because sometimes love must be interrupted by reason. You can't always rely on feelings to overcome toxicity. You must face the truth, name it, and withdraw. Beautiful memories no longer matter. The potential you once saw holds no value. And no matter how many times they say, "I'm sorry," it means nothing. If someone constantly makes you feel like you have to justify your character, they are not confused. They are comfortable with your self-doubt. The harsh truth is, they will keep doing it until you stop engaging. You cannot change someone who profits from your misunderstanding. You cannot heal in a space that keeps reopening wounds. And you cannot explain your way to peace when the other person thrives on chaos. So how did the woman in this story heal? She stopped explaining. She stopped sending long messages to clarify her intentions. She stopped defending her need for personal space. She stopped trying to make him understand what she meant. Instead, she sat quietly in the silence. And in that silence, she rebuilt herself. She realized peace isn't something to earn through validation. It is her birthright. It is the standard she sets. And those who don't respect that lose their access, not because she hates them, but because she finally loved herself enough to protect her energy. Maybe you are that woman, or still stuck in a version of her story. But the ending can change once you stop explaining and start reclaiming control. Your self-worth is not something to prove. It's something to guard fiercely. And no one, no matter how close, charming, or familiar, has the right to demand you justify your peace after years of emotional exhaustion, endless explanations, and defenses. There comes a time when you stop shouting, arguing, or breaking down. You simply choose silence, not out of fear, but strength. Because you've finally seen this truth, silence is not weakness. It's a boundary wrapped in calmness. It's power that requires no noise. Be clear, in a world addicted to drama, your silence will confuse them. They're used to emotional chaos. They're used to provoking you. They're used to controlling your nervous system. So when you don't react, don't explain, and say nothing, they panic because silence is not emptiness. It brims with self-respect. It signals that their manipulation no longer works, that they've been cut off from your energy. This is the birth of psychological boundaries. And no, setting boundaries isn't telling others what they can't do. It's deciding what you won't tolerate, respond to, or sacrifice, even if it costs you the relationship. Boundaries don't shout. They come without ultimatums or declarations. They're felt through your steadfastness, the way you stop over-explaining, protect your time, and leave with dignity, not drama. But here's the key. People don't test your boundaries by accident. They do it to measure what your silence is made of. They want to know if it's real or just temporary. Because if they're strong enough, poke the right wound, press the guilt button. You might fall. You might return to explaining. You might try proving you're not the bad guy. And if that happens, the cycle begins again. So you must choose, be misunderstood by the wrong people, or keep your peace undisturbed. You can't have both. It takes spiritual discipline to remain silent when every part of you wants to speak up. It takes maturity to let go of being right and choose freedom. It takes emotional wisdom to see that this fight leads nowhere. It only drains my energy. Silence then becomes more than a tool. It's a philosophy, a daily commitment to protect peace, even at the cost of acceptance or illusions of harmony. Let's be honest. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your boundaries if they've already shown disrespect. You have no obligation to teach others how to treat you forever. Sometimes you don't need louder messages. You need a stronger exit, because those who truly value you don't need reminders. They don't test your silence. They honor it. And those who don't were never really listening to begin with. They were just calculating. So here's a mindset shift. From now on, you don't have to shout to be heard. You raise your standards for respect. You stop over-explaining. You rise above it. That is the lesson of Stoicism. Peace isn't the absence of conflict but clarity, and clarity comes when you stop reacting to every noise around you and only respond to what aligns with your higher self. So if you're caught in a storm of emotions, relationships, or spirit, pause, step back, and instead of explaining, let silence become your shield. Let your distance speak louder than any argument. The moment you choose silence over defense, you shift from reaction to invulnerability. And that, my friend, is how you guard your energy without uttering a single word. There's a quiet tragedy unfolding around us, good people with kind hearts, empathetic souls pouring every ounce of effort just to be understood, to keep the peace, to avoid upsetting anyone, even if it means hurting themselves. But what no one ever told you growing up is this: you owe no one your peace. Not your partner, not your parents, not your past, not your pain. Peace is sacred ground, not a gift to be bartered or a favor granted when someone's ego is bruised. Yet many of us give it away so easily, as if it holds no value. We say yes when we mean no. We engage when we should withdraw. We explain ourselves endlessly until we're drained, exhausted, and bitter. Why? Because we've been trained to believe being good means always being available. Love means weakness, and spirituality means self-sacrifice. True spiritual discipline isn't about sacrificing your happiness for others. It's about recognizing that inner peace is sacred territory. Not everyone is entitled to walk there. So ask yourself, how many times have you stayed in a pointless conversation just to avoid being misunderstood? How often have you justified your worth to those who mock you behind your back? How many times have you traded your peace just to calm someone else's chaos? That's not peace, it's self-betrayal. The truth is, those who bristle when you protect your peace are often the very ones who took advantage when you didn't have it. Let that sink in. When you start setting psychological boundaries, when you stop reacting, stop over-explaining, stop making your soul easy, pray for every opinion, you'll notice something strange. Those who truly value your peace will draw closer. Those who thrive on your turmoil will label you selfish. That's your signal, your healing. Because here's the hard truth. Few dare to say, not everyone remembers the real you. They only remember the version of you who tolerated their disrespect. They recall the one who apologized for having boundaries, the one who stayed silent in the face of disrespect, the one who explained their pain to those who exploited it. But that version of you is gone, and it won't return. Because now you understand, your energy isn't a free gift. Your silence doesn't mean consent. Your peace is non-negotiable. This is emotional intelligence in action. Choosing not to fight every battle doesn't mean you're weak. It means you know your peace is far too valuable to waste on those who don't appreciate it. You owe no one an open door. You're not here to fix how others see your choices. You're not here to rescue anyone from the fallout of misunderstanding you. You're here to live your truth, to stand firm in your values without apology. When someone demands an explanation, let your calm speak for you. When someone tries to break your silence, let your distance be the answer. And when someone tries to guilt you for choosing peace, remember this: you don't owe them chaos to prove you care. You don't owe them pain to prove loyalty. You don't owe them your energy, especially when they wield it against you. Peace isn't isolation. It's clarity. Knowing who deserves closeness and who only seeks control. It's a deep self-respect that makes anything threatening your peace too costly to accept, because in the end, you're not defined by how much you endure. You're defined by how fiercely you protect what makes you whole. And above all, that is your peace. At a certain point in maturity, silence is no longer a tactic, but a way of being. It's no longer a reaction to conflict. It's more than protection. It becomes a declaration: I will no longer tolerate chaos. This silence confounds others because it isn't passive. It's strong, steadfast, unshakable. And here's what they don't get. You don't stay silent out of fear. You don't retreat because you're weak. You're not cold or distant. You're silent because you have mastered something they haven't even begun to understand. The most powerful statement is made through complete silence. When you stop reacting, something remarkable happens. You start to see clearly. You realize who needs your chaos to hold power, who leans on your emotional instability to feel in control, who only feels close when you're broken. And suddenly, you stop remembering them, because when you embrace silence, you no longer crave apologies. No more chasing closure. No more seeking validation. Why? Because peace doesn't beg. It doesn't chase. It doesn't explain. It simply exists like the ocean beneath a storm, calm, deep, untouched. This is the essence of emotional wisdom, realizing not every opinion deserves a response. Not every accusation calls for defense. Not every wound needs reopening to prove a point. Sometimes, the most healing thing you can do is absolutely nothing. No retaliation, no exposure, no words, just presence, a quiet confidence that says, you may think you've won because I don't fight back, but I'm not retreating out of defeat. I'm stepping back because I've triumphed in peace. This is mastery of self, a rare strength in a world obsessed with reaction. And let me tell you, once you reach this place, people start feeling your absence in ways words never could. They see you're not avoiding them. You're just unwilling to engage in the drama. You're not ignoring them. You simply refuse to replay the same exhausting cycles. And that unsettles them deeply, because, until now, they've lived off your habits, your guilt, your need to explain, rescue, and react. But when you choose silence, they lose access, not only to your presence, but also to the control they once had over your mind. This silence is dangerous to them because it's no longer a battle over arguments. It's a complete transcendence beyond the battlefield. You stop caring about who's right or wrong. What matters now is freedom, and this shift terrifies those who need you small, broken, reactive, and easy to manipulate. Silence is your refusal to play their rigged game. It's the path that lifts you out of their emotional whirlpool. Silence is the place where your inner peace echoes louder than any judgment cast upon you. If you're sitting quietly right now, wondering if this means you've given up, let me remind you, this silence is not surrender. It's your self-command, resonating stronger than any words you've ever spoken. There comes a moment in your journey when you stop shrinking. You no longer lower your voice to protect someone's fragile ego. You stop watering down your truth to make it easier to swallow. You cease apologizing not out of arrogance, but because you've seen the trap. Every apology you once offered for being yourself was an unspoken permission for others to disrespect you. You apologized for growing, for stepping back, for needing space, for saying no, for walking away. You said sorry for the most sacred parts of you, your honesty, your clarity, your standards. But now you understand better. The world doesn't need a smaller version of you. It needs the whole, unfiltered, unapologetic you. Because here's the truth. You were never too much. They were just too busy keeping you small. Your emotional depth made them feel shallow. Your clarity exposed their chaos. Your calm made their turmoil unbearable. So they labeled you cold, hard, selfish, distant. But you have never been those things. You simply refuse to sacrifice your worth on the altar of their insecurities. This is the beginning of psychological separation, not from love or connection, but from expectations, from the emotional blackmail that demands you shrink or lose them. Now you know this clearly. If betraying yourself is the price to keep them, losing them is freedom, not loss. You no longer carry guilt for raising your standards. You don't justify why your peace matters. You don't apologize for blocking those who weaponize your kindness. You don't apologize for setting boundaries they were never taught to respect. You don't apologize for seeing through manipulation and choosing your mental health over endurance. You don't apologize for choosing inner peace over external approval. This is emotional intelligence at its strongest, not just understanding your feelings, but mastering your reactions to those who exploit them. Let them call it what they want. Let them tell their version of the story. Let them play the victim while you simply choose not to be crushed. Because this is what most people never grasp. Freedom looks like rebellion to those still trapped in their cages. When you live unapologetically, you start making different choices. You stop engaging in uninvited arguments. You stop answering questions unworthy of your response. You stop explaining your growth to those stuck in emotional kindergarten. You don't waste energy proving your peace is valid. You don't expend strength trying to make others like the version of you that no longer exists. You simply walk fully in your truth quietly, confidently, without regret. And yes, people will talk. They will say you have changed. They will say you've lost your way. They'll claim you used to be easier to control, though they won't say it outright. But deep down, they know you haven't become worse. You've become whole. And wholeness threatens those who only love broken pieces. So let them misunderstand you, judge you from the outside, and talk behind your back while you grow stronger. While they speak, you'll rise. You will heal. You will create. You will dive deeper into the life meant for you. Every choice, every boundary, every breath, without regret. And in that space, true transformation begins. You start to love yourself the way you once begged others to love you, without regret, without conditions, without explanation. Because now you clearly know you owe no one anything but the truth of who you are. You've said enough, protected your heart, and defended your peace. You opened up time and again, to those who never wanted to understand you. Now, you let silence speak. No more justifying your worth. No more explaining your growth. No more clarifying what should have been respected from the start. The truth is, some people don't deserve your words. They only deserve your absence. There is a power that only silence can hold. Not the silence of defeat, but the silence of letting go, the silence of spiritual clarity, silence that says, I am at peace with being misunderstood, and I no longer need your permission to be free. This kind of silence strikes fear into controllers, guilt manipulators, and those who wield chaos as a weapon. When you stop explaining, they are left with their greatest fear themselves. Your words used to be their excuse to avoid, argue, twist, and deceive. Now there's nothing left to manipulate, nothing to attack, nothing to control. Only your calm, your distance, and your unshakable strength remain. And that presence speaks louder than any argument. It proclaims, I have moved beyond this conversation. It declares, your approval no longer defines my worth. It says, I am not angry. I am done. This is the pinnacle of emotional wisdom. No reaction, no engagement. Just watch and withdraw. True strength isn't domination. True strength lies in discipline. And silence is the most disciplined response. It doesn't need to prove anything. It doesn't seek applause. It doesn't beg for understanding. It simply walks away and lets the void speak for itself. Trust me, they will hear it in your quiet absence. They will hear every boundary you no longer justify. They will feel every ounce of energy you've reclaimed. They will confront their own reality without your voice to soften the blow. And in that silence, one of two things will happen. They will grow, or they will remain bitter. Either way, it's no longer your responsibility. Healing isn't just about becoming whole. It's also about releasing the need for others to understand you, especially those who choose to live in hurt. Let them sit with your silence. Let them drown in their own noise. Let them wonder why the power they once held vanished the moment you stopped speaking. That's when they realize you were never the problem. You were merely a mirror, reflecting a truth too harsh for them to bear. So here's your final reminder. You owe them no words. You owe them no closure. You owe them no more breath of justification. What you owe is to yourself to protect your peace. Honor the truth, and walk your path with calm resolve and quiet fire. Let your silence be your answer. Let your life stand as proof, and let their confusion be the price they pay for underestimating your strength. You've explained enough. Now it's time to live true to yourself. You've wasted too many years explaining to those who never truly listened. Far too much energy spent translating your heart into a language their ego refuses to learn. But now you understand. You don't need their understanding. You need your own freedom. And freedom begins the moment you stop begging to be seen and start seeing yourself clearly. The shadows within will always try to drag you into chaos, but you were not born to be swept away by that noise. You were born to rise in silence, to walk in truth, to become untouchable by chaos. From this moment on, you owe no one an explanation. You owe no one a softened version of your truth. You owe no one peace just to calm their disorder. Let your silence resonate. Let your energy speak louder than words. Let your presence be so clear the world knows exactly who you are without a single word. And when they ask why you stopped responding, why you walked away, why you changed, just smile and let your silence be the final answer. If this message has stirred something within you, if it reminded you of your value, strength, and quiet power, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video. If you're done with explaining, subscribe to Think Stoic 101 if you're ready to reclaim your energy and walk in truth. Comment below. I choose silence. I choose peace. I choose myself. Let the world know you have risen above it all. This is not the end of your journey, but the beginning of freedom. See you in the next video. Stoic Warrior. Until then, hold fast to your mindset, maintain your clarity, and never explain your light to those addicted to darkness.